beyond seek.
It's no use.
That didn't work! Need to try.
This thing isn't doing... You give me any more gifts and people will start thinking you're playing favorites.
Even my Stelgar eyes can't see in this darkness.
We light our own path now, Watcher.
Can you do that again? I had something in my eye. Missed most of it.
That didn't...
Dunzunet Postendago Basso.
Ostek Worth!
Daha fazla bir an.
That didn't work! That didn't work!
That's right.
Moe Ixi. Lavaru be.
Moe Ixi. Moeth Ixi. This thing isn't doing.
Metko Swolia.
I never thought he'd reveal himself in person. This is incredible. Even his form is fickle and unknowable. Amazing.
Your very past is a mystery. You bury it deep, reinventing yourself with each new path. You unravel a thread, Watcher. One you have lost and discovered over generations. And following it to its end has only brought you back to the beginning. mind and brimming with potential. The answer to Whitaker's question at the beginning of yours. What would you do with them? A song the world knows and tires of. The droning chorus repeated again and again. Better the improvised melody, the unfolding chant. The listeners sit rapt, and just when they think they have the tune, it changes again. Even the gods require fresh mysteries. No end, Watcher. That is the purpose. None know. They could end up anywhere in the realms of gods or mortals, whole or divided. Discovering them again and charting their course through the ether will be a new mystery. That is a word for endings, and this is but a crossroads. Even I do not know what you will choose.
I'll get the next one.
Lavaru, be on... Seek!
Have something here that works. Not exactly what I was going for. I'll take a peek.
That's not very... helpful? Oh, sec. This thing isn't...
Doing the job.
That didn't work! Need to try something!
Easy does it. can think of a better place for this stuff.
I am trusting you to remain loyal to the gods in this. I wouldn't ask this were there any other choice.
This is a mission. Oceanus. They have held off many would-be invaders.
You are ready to give a confession?
I'm ready to hear one from you.
You are far from your post, Inquisitor. What brings you here? We are in a sanctum holy to Utica. There are others like it in service to the other gods. I come here often to pray for her counsel, and in this space I may be assured that she hears me. That woman sought only to destroy the foundations of peace and civility that my people sacrificed everything to build. It has many uses, but its purpose is to bring structure to the chaos that surrounds it. They are monuments to Utica's greatest servants among my people. I hope to join them myself one day, but my work is not yet complete. The Inquisition was based on the need to cut the flesh from a rotting wound. What is a god? A higher power? A rewarder of good deeds and punisher of the wicked? Something men can turn to in their darkest moments when their days seem only like bridges from one tragedy to the next. We are in a sacred place within earshot of the gods themselves. This is not the time. You've been through much these past few months. You will return home and you will rest. When you feel you have recovered, you may rejoin us at the trials. The Inquisition is far from over, and I will have need of you. There are many who continue to spread the lies of the apostate. The Inquisition will not end until we have pronounced judgment on all of them. How did you find it? Another in a string of acts of petty defiance. For all her knowledge, she always preferred spite over reason. Then she should have obeyed. I ask one thing of all my followers. She was incapable. A waste of rare talent and intellect. What of your cohorts, then? They have followed you to their deaths. Is it loyalty that brings them here? Or is it, as my agents suggest, that they have no direction of their own? You worshipped Aethys, did you not?
Your spies are good. What gave me away? The cape?
Yet when your god needed you the most, you chose your country.
We were being invaded. Not by anyone who was acting like a god.
Then I should think your hometown gave you a hero's welcome when you returned.
They gave me one. It didn't last, but what does?
Neither faith nor loyalty in your case, I think. Your god deserved better from his follower. What of you, Orlan? My agents tell me you are far from home, both in distance and in years. Have your friends proven a worthy distraction from the pain of ostracism?
Ostracism? Is that the name for the groin rash your mother gave me? Don't fool yourself, old man. You know nothing about me.
Enlighten me, then. Is it Galawain you serve, or is it Wau?
I give both gods their due service, but I am servant to neither.
But such difficulty on the way. If you had only accepted that perhaps you were fit to serve neither god, just as you were unfit to serve your tribe, you might have saved yourself the trouble.
My tribe was unfit to serve me. And yes, I'm not fit to serve any god. I need only serve myself. Can you claim that, Theos? Are you your own master, or are you just Utica's wet nurse?
I serve all people, better than they will ever know. Better to live a competent servant than an incompetent master. You built a weapon that delivered exactly as promised.
I served my goddess as you did yours.
Yet the other builders were slain, 11 of a dozen. Why not you? Were you somehow different? Redeemable in your god's sight?
Whatever desire I had to be redeemed in her eyes was weakness, purged by the Watcher's sight.
Or was it merely that your goddess wanted you dead as well, and your delusions of importance prevented you from seeing the obvious?
A whore's beguiling charms, nothing more. But the spell's broke now, Theos. The trial's over. I know friend from foe, and I've come here now to see a foe repaid.
You were able to destroy a god because another god wished it. Without her hand to guide you, you could not strike at a god any more than you could strike the sky. You are impotent, and not just from the pox. I understand your Duke's bells gave you a mission.
Their orders do not absolve me of my greater responsibility to the safety and well-being of the Republics.
Yet you disobeyed. Something you already have a reputation for. They will know, of course. If it had been for a worthy cause, they might have forgiven you. But I don't see them pursuing Animancy after seeing what it's done here. They trusted you, and you disappointed, as you always have. And you will again be disowned.
The parents scold, but the children are safe. Whether Animancy research continues in the Republics or not, they will survive. For now, that's enough. In any case, I wouldn't be so smug about my fate, Theos. I imagine Woodica responds to disappointment much more severely than even my dukes.
State your name and purpose, young acolyte.
My name belonged to the gods and my hand to their service. No more.
You serve none but yourself. Without contact with your order, you can have no higher purpose. Only the base concerns of the flesh. You have cast yourself from our ranks.
And I should have done it years before. I'd rather live in uncertainty than servitude.
And that uncertainty would lead you where it leads everyone. To doubt, to emptiness, to the many cruelties inspired by disbelief. You will have to forgive your Grandmaster for remaining skeptical of his initiate's choices. You are here because you are lost. The gods cannot reach everyone, I'm afraid. May you fare better in your next lives. I gather you have had your soul awakened. Why else would you shadow my footsteps like some stray mongrel? You think I have something to offer you, but our business was concluded long ago. You think your abilities only flow in one direction. That isn't how it works, I'm afraid. Not for me. For all that you saw of my soul in the sanitarium, I saw as much of yours. I answered your questions once. That your soul is not fit to accept the answers is of little concern to me. I lied to no one. Not to you, not to anyone. The gods are real. They are everything we need them to be, and the world is better for it. I have no illusions about the costs involved. But what your brief lifespan obscures is that it is what must be done. The heart of this country has skipped a beat, nothing more. I have done far worse. I plunged the peaceful kingdom of Telosus into civil war. I slew the monarch of Desantio, whose people never knew hardship under his rule, and replaced him with a cruel despot who brought them to ruin. When plague arrived at the great city of Arborensis, I saw to it that the cure did not. They piled their dead outside the city in heaps that rose above their walls. That's where you are mistaken. There was a time, back when your soul was still a shapeless mist, when the world believed only in false gods. Thousands of them. Gods that told them to take slaves. Gods that told them to make war upon their neighbors and devour the slain. Gods that told them to burn their children alive and cover themselves in the ashes as a sign of their faith. But all that changed when they learned of the true gods. Our gods. All those misshapen, bestial instincts melted beneath the radiance of our God's majesty. You could see it in their eyes. That dull emptiness replaced with the glimmer of a kindled spark. There is no false hope. Only hope for things that never come. Have you imagined this existence? The one the apostate would have created. We are not all so virtuous as she. Without our gods, the most wicked, the most tyrannical, they would take that power for themselves. But more than that, it would be a hollow existence. All mysteries forever unanswered. All purposes constructed from meaninglessness. No endings to bring closure. Only a wheel, turning without mercy, grinding our spirits to dust. For all my years, I have seen exactly what they are capable of. What the apostate asked was beyond any man. All I have seen, the millennia of experience. I will not be dissuaded from this course. This is the only way. We are all controlled by our own doubts. Better that we should be relieved of them. With your soul and thousands of others, I will see this world purged of its suffering. Hear me, Woedica. Your servant calls for aid. Roak 10! Rituligna.
worth... Architect's worth it.
Mow it. Mark 10!
That's...
I'll get the next...
The far beyond. Mow it. Breathing. The Faru.
Curse me! My end!
Ulu Thed! Someone check on Alor! Moed.
Breathe. That's the servant down, and the mistress still to go. A good start, worthy of being built upon.
I hope this is the end, but what's to stop him from being born again with the same ill intent? And before you suggest the option, no, I'm not eating his soul. I'll put almost anything in my mouth, but not that.
In his own way, Theos must have truly believed he was caring for the people of Eora, protecting them from themselves. A shame his soul won't have a chance to reflect on his errors before it enters the wheel.
He was good at serving his god, I give him that. He should have picked a better one.
He spent his lives, more than any of us will ever know,
For what? Binding the world to a lie. Could a man like that ever be redeemed?
To apply the teachings of Durance would more immediately satisfy the cravings in my bones. But this is the stronger lesson, for his soul is already marked by his own hand.
Some acts cannot be forgiven, it seems.
I suppose we'll see if he can rise above that. Astounding. I always knew the Leaden Key stood for something big, but I didn't quite realize what I'd gotten myself into. And now, you're in the middle of something even bigger. But even if you send the souls somewhere specific now, who knows what the next turn of the wheel will make of them? We can't really control what happens to them. Nor should we try. I had to see the monster Theos had become to realize that. It's your decision, of course. And whatever you decide, I'm glad our paths crossed in Gilded Vale.
The end of the road greets us at last. You fared well, Watcher. Better than any Watcher has right to. Seems you were afield in need of a flame's cleansing. Would that my own trial had produced such an outcome. I had figured myself for the field all this time. But you were the field, and I the darkness. A lesson neither of Durance nor of Margarin. But with that...
So much for Theos, then. Now you have a chance to set things right, back to the proper order of things. It will take the Dyrwood generations to recover, but at least these souls will find their way back to the wheel, as it should be.
Theos, he had hold of your soul from a long time back, seems like. You get what you needed from him? More than most can say. Country's still full of people who are dangerous when they're scared. You'll be feeling better soon, then. Good. That's real good. You got it figured out what you're going to do about all that? Got a lot of people out there thinking they've been abandoned by their gods. There's not much that'll put the fear in you more than that. You can take my word for it. If it was in my power, and I know it's not, but if it was, I'd send every last one of those souls right back where they were supposed to go in the first place. So folks, after what you've been through, though, I'm sure you got your own ideas. Better make it good.
Victory looks good on you. There was a blur about your soul that lingers no more. Seems putting Theos to rest has given you some measure of inner peace. Of course, now you need to decide what to do with these trapped souls.
At your command, the ancient device became your instrument, spinning to life with deafening resonance and gathering up the swirling essence like thread on a great spindle. There, in the pale pulsing glow of the machine that set you on this path long ago, you summoned all your strength, focusing on your objective and blocking out all else. With a single concussive blast that rocked the chamber and sent you tumbling to the ground, you freed the souls from their stasis. Exhausted, your consciousness slipping away, your last sight was of the machine, dark and dormant. Then your eyes closed, and sleep welcomed you at long last. After coming to and searching for some time, you discovered the route Theos used to enter Sun in Shadow, and embarked on a long and arduous ascent back to the surface. You emerged in Ter Evron after days of tunneling through the rubble Theos had left behind, and when you stepped into the daylight, you were faced with a different Dyrwood than the one you had left. At your direction, the souls diverted by Theos were guided back to the vessels originally meant for them. For the first time, parents of hollow-born children woke to the cries of their infants and looked into their eyes to see them staring back. People fell to their knees where they stood, thanking Helia or Mogren or even Aethys for their forgiveness of whatever guilt they felt they bore. But for all the relief that had come to some parents, others only found new grief. For many thousands of Hollowborn had died during Wide-One's legacy, many by their parents' own hands. For those children, there would be no homecoming. Yet the last Hollow birth was in the past now, and those parents willing to risk trying for a new child were frequently rewarded, often with twins. Many felt they saw Helia's hand in it, and the year would be remembered as the year of Helia's splendor. Lord Radric's zeal had brought him back to life once, but it would not do so again. Radric's destruction at your hands spelled the end of his suffocating rule over Gilded Vale and the surrounding area. In his absence, the village prospered, becoming a popular destination for new settlers anxious to leave Defiance Bay after the riots. Without a nearby ruler, it also grew more wild, with many settlers moving on as soon as they'd arrived, turned off by lawlessness that was excessive even by Dyrwooden standards. Nevertheless, despite the challenges of living there, Gilded Vale had survived, and would continue to survive for the foreseeable future. Following the assassinations of Duke Avar Wolfgren and Lady Webb, Defiance Bay was thrown into political upheaval. In the ensuing weeks, the streets had become the domain of looters and blackguards. Few dared to step outside their own doors alone or unarmed. But once the dozens had regrouped in the wake of the riots, they quickly put an end to the criminal activity, patrolling the streets in droves and administering their brand of law on any perceived offenders. They also took the opportunity to depose the weakened Knights of the Crucible from their position of authority, branding them traitors to the people for their actions during the riots. Whatever knights weren't stoned to death in front of their keep were forced into exile. The external contingent of knights stationed at Fleetbreaker Castle would remain there, their high justice plotting the city's recapture. The dozens would soon find themselves overwhelmed by the problems of a leaderless metropolis, and in the days and months ahead, Defiance Bay remained on the brink of collapse. Though the machine atop Ter Noaneth had been disabled, it had not seen its last use. Heritage Hill was rebuilt, and no sooner had the first families moved in to resettle the district than members of the Leaden Key, acting under standing orders from their Grand Master, climbed the tower and reactivated the machine. The initiates slew a handful of the new settlers under cover of night, and watched as history repeated itself, the victims reanimating and devouring the survivors. After this second incident, the district would remain abandoned. The Duke's assassination at the apparent hands of an Animancer had caused catastrophic rioting in the streets of Defiance Bay, and few Animancers survived the first day. Many Dyrwoodens took the end of Wide-One's legacy as a sign, both that the gods did not approve of Animancy, and that the purging of Animancers in Defiance Bay had been enough to satisfy them. In time, their rage would subside, and a number of surviving Animancers remained in and around Defiance Bay, often taking to the wilds to practice their science without repercussions. The town of Deerford had seen the last of the cult of Scan. Dark rumors about the town's many curses quickly faded, and travelers soon returned. The fortress of Cadnua emerged as a bastion of security in the midst of an untamed land, becoming the envy of every Thane and Earl in Dyrwood. Legend grew over time of its impregnability, and stories of formidable invaders easily scattered by the keep's defenses became popular around the hearths of Dyrwoodenians. Likewise, it also became a beacon to travelers, merchants, and visiting dignitaries alike. Reputed as the finest fortress in all Dyrwood, People would journey from near and distant lands alike to experience its fabled hospitality and grandeur. Pallegina had gone against the Duke Spell's orders by inventing a new trade arrangement with the Anamenfath to accommodate the recovering Deerwooden market. With the Deerwood's people still weakened by Weidmund's legacy, the Vailian republics easily pushed their would-be competitors out of the market. For her outrageous insubordination and audacity, Pallegina was banished from the republics. She traveled north in the Eastern Reach, avoiding Vailian ports and entering the ranks of the kind wayfarers. Despite her bravery and dedication to those in her care, her strange appearance made her feel like an outsider wherever she went. Adair chose not to return home. Still conflicted as to his role in the Saints' War and unsure of his place in the Deerwood, he took a ship to Adir and reunited with his parents. There, he resumed the quiet lifestyle he had grown accustomed to in his years as a farmhand in Gilded Vale. When the dust settled in Sun and Shadow, Aloth looked upon the remains of Theos Ixarchanon, his former master. He saw where the Grand Master had gone wrong and what would be required to undo the harm Theos had wrought. With a flick of his wrist, he burned Theos's robe, headdress, and every other symbol of the man's power. Never again, he vowed, should Kith live in fear and blind obedience to an authority they did not understand. Armed with the knowledge and courage he had gained on his journeys with the Watcher, he set out on the long and lonely task of dismantling the Leaden Key. With the Watcher's goals accomplished and his own vows fulfilled, Kanarua sailed back to Tekoa. His friends and family found him much changed, for a pall had fallen upon the man, smothering his former enthusiasm. Called before the Lore College, Kana told them of the pain the Engwithan legacy brought to the lands abroad. He insisted that a search for answers abroad could only fragment the Rawatai people, as it had done to the Deerwood. His findings were met with much respect, and Kanarua's voice came to be considered an influential one in the growing move towards Rawatai's isolation. With Theos defeated and the souls released from Sun and Shadow, healthy children were born once again in the Deerwood. The grieving mother sought a place where she might do penance for the birthing bell. She returned to Deerford, where, to the astonishment of the villagers, she delivered the first healthy child in over a decade. She remained there, and with each new birth, she saw a measure of hope restored to the Deerwood, and a measure of grace for her own troubled past. Durrance used Magrin's strength only until Theos had been cast from the world, and then swore off her influence entirely. Regret came to weigh heavily on his mind, and a man who had never previously lacked for words or opinions came to embrace silence and contemplation. He continued to wander, penniless and destitute, searching now not for the reason for his goddess's silence, but for a mechanism for revenge. The charred robes he continued to wear as a reminder that he had been burned by his goddess, and not just by the flames of the Godhammer. You and Sagani never found Persoc together. The Adra figurine had gone dark by the time they emerged from Sun and Shadow, and it was another month before Sagani finally accepted that Persoc's trail had gone cold again. Her search took her beyond the Deerwood and as far as the Living Lands. She saw the great coastal cities of Rawatai and the ruins of Old Valia, absorbing the details of these strange and distant lands. 20 years passed before the Adra figurine finally glowed again. When it did, she followed its signal to a quiet hamlet on the outskirts of Adir. There, she met a young farmer and told her of her past as an elder of Masuk. Sagani returned to a village that had forgotten her face, but remembered her story. Masuk greeted her with cautious warmth, and Sagani found that their ways had become strange to her. She also learned that Kalu had perished of winter fever a few years before, and her middle child, Najuo, had died in a raid. But she found her daughter Yakona a hunter and mother of 3, and her son Malak a builder of mighty walls. In them, she came to find her place in the village, and the familiar contours of a world that had changed in her absence. For you, the death of Theos brought an end to your waking visions, and a silence to the whispers of the past. In their absence, you were able to sleep. The questions of a distant lifetime ceased to trouble your soul. All that remained was what to make of the answer. But at the moment, there was little to be done, and the matter would have to wait. A long journey loomed ahead.